When I try to explain what happened, I am never sure how I sound. Sometimes I wonder if I am being followed. Other times I wonder if my mind is slowly breaking. I had never seen things that were not there before. I used to laugh at stories about strange beings and things beyond our world. After that night, I stopped laughing. It began last October while I was driving through northern Connecticut. I had just finished visiting my brother. He was going through a hard time with his relationship, and I stayed longer than I planned. By the time I left, it was almost midnight. I still had about 7 hours of driving ahead of me. The road would take me through quiet towns and long stretches of countryside. For the first hour, everything felt normal. The road was empty and the radio played softly. Then a thick fog rolled in. That part did not scare me. Fog is common there during that time of year. Still, I slowed down to about 30 miles an hour. The fog was heavy, pressing against my windshield. I leaned forward, trying to see more clearly through the gray air. At first, all I could see was mist. Then shapes began to form. Trees. Their trunks were twisted in ways that did not feel natural. They bent and curled like something trying to copy trees but failing. It reminded me of a computer trying to draw nature without fully understanding it. My stomach tightened. I shook my head and told myself I was tired. But the trees stayed the same. Then the sky began to change and my fear turned into shock. Dark beams of light broke through the fog from above. They were not warm like sunlight. They looked wrong, almost black. Beneath those beams, something floated. It looked almost human, but not quite. Its body was shaped like a person, yet everything about it felt off. Its size, its movement, its presence. It made my skin crawl and my chest feel tight, yet I could not look away. My car suddenly slowed. The engine coughed once, then went quiet. I pulled over without thinking. My heart was pounding as I stepped out of the car. I do not know why I did that. Part of me was terrified of seeing more. Another part of me was more afraid of not seeing enough. The forest fell silent. The fog faded away as if it had never been there. The air felt heavy and damp. I looked up, expecting to see the floating being again. What I saw forced me to my knees. Above me was a massive circle hanging in the sky. It looked like a giant metal ring, slightly bent, shaped like an eye. Inside it swirled thick vapor, turning slowly. I realized where the fog had gone. I realized where the sound had gone too. Everything was being pulled toward it. The air, the noise. Even my thoughts felt like they were drifting upward. I whispered, "What the hell?" but I could not hear my own voice. The sound vanished as soon as it left my mouth. Then a new sound was born. A deep hum rolled through the ground. It was so low I felt it more than I heard it. It vibrated through my shoes, up my legs and into my spine. The trees shook. Leaves fell as if the forest itself was afraid. The vapor inside the eye began to spin faster. Beams of light poured out, stretching across the sky. They bent and curved in ways that made my head ache. When I could see again, the beams had changed. They twisted into strange symbols that crawled through the air like living things. I stumbled backward and fell near the edge of the road. Fear snapped me back to myself. I scrambled into my car and tried to start it. I slammed the wheel and the door again and again. The silence made everything worse. Finally, the engine started, but I was not in control. The lights on the dashboard warped and twisted into the same shapes floating outside. My hands shook so badly I could barely grip the wheel. It felt like reality itself was breaking. Then I heard it, not with my ears, inside my head. One broken word. Found. I froze. The hum changed into slow, heavy thuds, like massive footsteps deep underground. The eye above me tightened. All the light snapped back into it. In a bright flash, the being returned. It slid out of the eye like it was being lowered on invisible strings. It was impossibly tall. Its arms were as long as its body. Its fingers were twisted yet smooth, shining like polished stone. It had no face, only a blank oval where a face should be. It reflected light like wet clay. My body pulsed in time with the deep footsteps. I knew it wanted me to come closer. With everything I had, I pressed the gas pedal. The car moved. I spun around in a wild turn and raced back the way I came. The radio exploded with noise, but it was not music. It was screaming sounds that did not belong to this world. I could not tell if it was the radio or my mind. The trees bent toward the road as I passed. Some snapped and leaked thick black fluid. It shone the same way the being's skin did. I drove as fast as I could. Slowly, the nightmare behind me grew smaller. The sound did not fully return for miles. When it did, everything looked normal again. But I knew something was wrong. I could feel it watching. Days passed. I told myself it was exhaustion. Fear. Nothing more. I almost believed it. Then one night, while walking my dog, I looked up. The clouds above my house were spinning. They formed a circle. An eye. It blinked. A voice filled my soul. Found you. This time I did not run. And that is what scares me most. After that night, sleep stopped feeling safe. I still went to bed. I still closed my eyes. But rest never came the same way again. Every time I drifted close to sleep, I felt that pulling feeling in my chest, like something far away was gently tugging on a thread tied to my heart. During the day, life looked normal. Cars passed. Neighbors waved. The sky stayed blue. But behind everything I felt watched. Not in a loud way. Not like danger running at me. It was patient. Calm. Certain. I stopped driving at night. I stopped listening to the radio. Silence felt safer even though it reminded me of the fog. I tried not to look at the sky for too long. That worked for a while. Then the dreams started. I would dream of standing in wide open fields. The same dirt fields from before. No trees. No buildings. Just flat land and a sky that felt too close. I could hear that deep hum again, soft at first like a heartbeat. In the dreams, I never saw the eye right away. I only felt it watching. I would wake up soaked in sweat, my ears ringing, my chest tight. Each night, the dreams lasted longer. One night, I didn't wake up screaming. I woke up calm. Too calm. I was standing in my bedroom barefoot. The window was open. Cold air brushed my skin. Outside, the clouds were moving in slow circles again. I didn't feel afraid. That scared me more than fear ever had. I whispered, "What do you want?" The answer came from inside me, not outside. To be seen. My legs moved on their own. I walked outside, down the steps, onto the empty street. The world felt hollow, like sound had been turned down. The clouds above twisted faster, pulling light into themselves. The eye opened. But this time it didn't stay in the sky. The air folded inward. Space bent. The street stretched like rubber. The eye lowered, and from it, the being stepped through as if it were crossing a doorway. Up close, it was even taller than I remembered. Its skin reflected the world in broken pieces. The blank oval of its face tilted toward me. I should have run. I didn't. The ground vibrated gently, not threatening, almost soothing. The hum matched my heartbeat now. "You were always looking," the voice said inside me. "You just didn't know what for." Images filled my mind. Not pictures but feelings. Curiosity. Loneliness. That need to understand what waits beyond the edge of things. I realized something then. It wasn't hunting me. It had answered me. I fell to my knees. Tears slid down my face without fear attached to them. "What happens now?" I asked. The being reached out. One long finger touched my forehead. It was cold, gentle. The world peeled away. I saw roads folding into the sky, cities shrinking into patterns, humans moving like sparks of light. I felt time stretch and thin like it was made of fog. "You were found because you looked back," the voice said. When I woke up, I was in my bed. Morning light filled the room. Birds sang. Everything felt normal. Too normal. Days passed. Weeks. I went back to driving. I slept through the night. The sky stayed quiet. But something had changed. I noticed patterns others didn't. Circles and clouds. Stillness and noise. I felt pulls toward certain places, certain roads. Sometimes I catch my reflection and it feels delayed, like it's watching me instead of copying me. I don't feel afraid anymore. That's the truth I don't tell anyone, 'cause now I understand. It wasn't an eye, it was a door. And once something sees you, it never really lets you go. I wish I could say that writing that last part helped. That getting it off my chest made the fear feel smaller. But it didn't. If anything, saying it out loud made it feel closer, like calling its name softly in the dark. The cabin went quiet after that. No one joked. No one laughed. Someone turned on the TV just to fill the silence, but it didn't help much. The snow kept falling outside, slow and steady, making the world feel sealed off. The windows were already fogging up from the heat inside, and I kept checking them, half expecting to see a shape pressed against the glass. I lay in my sleeping bag with my eyes open, listening. At first, all I heard was normal stuff. Wind brushing the trees. Snow sliding off branches. Someone snoring softly in the next room. I almost let myself relax. Then I heard it. Not loud. Not close. Just wrong. A slow, wet sound like breathing that didn't need lungs to do it. It came from far out in the trees, then stopped. I held my breath, waiting. A few seconds later came the clicking sound. Soft, careful, like something testing the air. I didn't move. I didn't wake anyone up. I told myself it was an animal, a deer, maybe an owl. But animals don't sound curious like that. They don't pause the way this did, like it was listening back. The sound circled the cabin slowly. Not footsteps exactly. More like weight shifting. Snow compressing under something uneven. Each sound felt deliberate, placed just far enough away to make me doubt myself. Then came the knock. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. Just a gentle tap against the wood. What? Then again. I squeezed my eyes shut and waited for someone else to react. No one did. Either they were asleep or they were pretending to be. The knocking moved. Tap, tap. It wasn't on the door anymore. It was along the wall. Then the window frame. That's when I noticed something else. The sounds weren't getting closer in the normal way. They were moving backward. Like whatever was out there was facing away from the cabin while still watching it. I remembered the story. The legs. The way it walked. My stomach twisted. I don't know how long it lasted. Minutes. Hours. At some point the sound stopped completely. The silence afterward felt heavier than the noise. Eventually exhaustion won. I must have slept. Morning came too fast. Sunlight bounced off the snow outside, bright and innocent. Everyone acted normal again. Laughing. Making coffee. Talking about breakfast plans. I almost convinced myself it was over. Until Joey opened the door. Right outside the cabin, pressed into the fresh snow, were the tracks. They didn't look like anything specific. Not paws. Not boots. Not hooves. They were shaped almost like feet, but wrong. Too long. Too narrow. And each print was turned slightly backward, like the thing that made them had been walking away from the cabin while coming toward it. No one said anything for a long time. Someone finally laughed and said it was probably a prank. Someone else said maybe it was a sick deer. I didn't argue. There was no point. We packed up early. The drive home felt longer than it should have. I kept checking the rearview mirror. Not because I expected to see it, but because part of me was scared that I wouldn't. That's the part one don't like to admit. Because ever since then I've noticed things. Tracks that vanish halfway through a field. Clicking sounds when the sky is cloudy and the moon is gone. That same feeling of being watched, but now it doesn't always scare me. Sometimes it feels like recognition. Like something out there knows me the same way I know it. They say if the twisted walker remembers you, it doesn't rush. It waits. It doesn't need to chase. It only comes closer each time you think you're safe. I don't know if it followed me home from that trip. But last night there was snow outside my apartment window. And when I looked down from the third floor, I saw a single line of tracks in the parking lot. They didn't lead toward the building. They led away. And that somehow felt worse. I didn't call anyone about the tracks. By the time I worked up the nerve to look again, the sun had melted the edges of them, softening their shape until they could be anything. Or nothing. That's the trick, I think. It never leaves proof long enough for you to be sure. I went inside and locked my door. That night the sky was cloudy. No moon. The kind of darkness that presses close to buildings instead of staying in the distance. I kept all the lights off and sat on my bed, listening to the sounds of the apartment settling. Pipes ticking. Heat kicking on. Somewhere far away a car alarm. Then the breathing started. Not outside. Inside the walls. Slow. Patient. Like something learning the layout of the place. The clicking followed, faint and arrhythmic, never repeating the same pattern twice. I didn't move. I didn't reach for my phone. I remembered what the people in Carroll County always said. If you hear it, it already knows where you are. The sound drifted down the hallway. Stopped outside my bedroom door. There was no knocking this time. Just pressure. The silence afterward was worse. Silence means it's thinking. I don't sleep much anymore. I plan my days around daylight. I avoid forests. I avoid fields. I avoid windows at night. And when I walk somewhere dark, I never, ever look behind me. Because that's the last thing they say about the twisted walker. It doesn't chase you. It walks away from you. Always facing the opposite direction. Always listening. And when you finally do turn around to check, that's when it stops remembering you. That's when it finds you. My grandfather is many things. He is a man who carries old traditions on his shoulders. He is the center of a family that has been broken again and again by loss. People see him as a strong man, a soldier, a leader, a man who knows important people and has done important work. He has traveled far, met powerful people, and lived a life that sounds bigger than most. In his town he is respected. People listen when he speaks. People come to him for help, and he makes sure they are taken care of. Yes, my grandfather is many things. When I was a child, I used to sit close to him and listen. He would tell stories from his life and I would listen quietly. He talked about strange missions, about being sent to search for a lost nuclear weapon deep in a swamp. He talked about long nights sitting at tables with government officials, making sure they were happy, making sure everything was perfect. He talked about the many jobs he took over the years, always moving, never staying in one place for too long. He spoke like a man drifting through life, never fully stopping anywhere. As a child, those stories felt exciting. They felt important. I thought my grandfather was larger than life. But there were other stories too. These were not told to children. These were told quietly by my mother and her brothers and sisters. They were shared late at night over glasses of wine, mixed with laughter that sounded forced. The kind of laughter people used to cover pain. The smiles never quite reached their eyes. These stories were about who my grandfather was when no one else was watching. He was an alcoholic. Not the kind you see passed out on the street. He worked. He provided. He functioned. Even now he still drinks, though it is only small sips of wine. What makes it strange is that he used to judge others like himself. He looked down on them. He acted as if he was better. When he drank, he became mean. My mother says he was kinder when she was very young, before they moved back to the United States, before something inside him hardened. She says the change came slowly, like bitterness settling deep into his bones. He blamed his anger on my grandmother's parents. He said they were cruel, controlling, and overbearing. He hated them deeply. And when his children reminded him of them, he took that hatred out on his own kids. My mother suffered the most. She was the oldest child. Her grandparents favored her. They spoiled her and tried to pull her away from her parents. They had their own flaws and their own cruelty, but they loved her in their way. Whenever she came home from seeing them, she was afraid. She would hide from her father. If he was in a bad mood, he would beat her badly. Black and blue. Over and over again. Those beatings marked her childhood. Much of that time is gone from her memory now. Her mind buried it to survive. And yet she still loves him. Even now they are close. Something changed when I was born. I was the first grandchild. My mother finally stood up to him. She told him that if he ever touched her children the way he touched her, she would leave and never let him see us again. She meant it. He knew she meant it. So he stopped hitting. He never laid a hand on me. Instead, he used his voice. He shouted. He ordered us around like soldiers. Like prisoners. When we were older and joined the family business, it got worse. He demanded perfection. A broken antique mattered more than a person. A mistake was not forgiven. He ran an estate sale business. If you were strong enough, you worked. If your body could handle it, you were expected to help, even as a child. We learned how to price things, move heavy furniture, and deal with customers whether we wanted to or not. It was never a choice. Only two of us really were able to work. The rest of my generation struggled. Some were sick often. Some had minds that worked differently. It was not their fault. It was never their fault. If there is blame, it belongs to my grandfather and to the government. Before he was a businessman. Before he was respected. Before people whispered about the strange jobs he took, he was just a soldier. A young man sent to Vietnam. Government property. Something to be used. Something to be spent. He was part of experiments. One of the worst was Agent Orange. He was exposed twice as far as we know. The first time was not an accident. He was taken into a cold, clean room. He was ordered to strip down to his underwear. He stood against a wall while they sprayed him. Like an animal. Like something that did not matter. They covered his skin in chemicals. The second exposure came later. After my mother was born. He was on a mission he never talked about. He reached a river filled with runoff from chemicals. The water was orange. Thick. Poisoned. There was no other way forward, so he walked through it. He told this story many times. He laughed when he told it. His eyes would drift far away. He always joked about how deep the water was, using crude humor like it made the memory easier to carry. 1 year later, my aunt was born. At first she seemed normal, but one eye was cloudy with a cataract. Her wrists had extra tendons. Doctors removed the cataract, but her eye never worked right. It stayed smaller and weak. The extra tendons made her strong. Too strong. Her grip was powerful, but her wrists broke often. Again and again. Her life became one long stretch of pain. Still, her condition was mild compared to what came later. The real damage showed up in her children. The ones born after. Their bodies carried the cost of things done long before they were born. Things that were never meant to touch human skin. Things that should never have been used. Those children suffer in ways that are hard to describe. Their lives are marked by pain from the start. Doctors give explanations, but explanations do not fix anything. They are loved. They are cared for, but they are cursed by a past they never chose. I think about them often. I pray for them every day that I live alone. There are no roommates in my house. There are no neighbors close enough to play tricks or make noise near my place. My home is quiet, especially at night. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own breathing. The kind of quiet where even small sounds feel big. For weeks now, something strange has been happening. Every single night, at exactly 2:17 in the morning, I hear my car door close. It is always the same sound. Not loud. Not fast. Not angry. Just a soft, gentle thud. It sounds careful, like whoever is doing it does not want to be noticed. Like they are taking their time. Like they know exactly what they are doing. At first, I told myself it was nothing. I told myself my mind was playing tricks on me. I told myself that when you live alone, you start to hear things that are not really there. I tried to laugh it off. I tried to forget about it, but the sound kept coming back. Night after night. Always the same time. Always the same soft closing sound. So I started checking things. I checked my keys. Every time they were still sitting on the table where I always leave them. I checked the locks on my doors. Everything was locked. Nothing was out of place. After the third night, I got scared enough to install cameras. I placed them carefully. One facing the driveway. One near the car. I wanted proof. I wanted to see what was happening. The next morning, I watched the footage. Nothing moved. No people. No animals. No shadows. The camera showed the car sitting still. The driveway empty. The night calm and quiet. And yet, I knew what I had heard. What unsettles me is not just the sound itself. It is the timing. Every night, I wake up seconds before it happens. Not minutes. Not long before. Just seconds. My eyes snap open. My heart starts to race. My mouth feels dry. My body feels tense, like it is waiting for something it already knows is coming. And then I hear it, that soft thud. It feels like something inside me already knows. Like some part of me is listening before my ears do. Like my body is warning me before my mind can catch up. Last night, I finally forced myself to look out the window. I did not want to. Every part of me wanted to stay in bed and pretend I heard nothing. But I got up anyway. My legs felt heavy. My hands felt cold. I looked outside. My car was there. Parked exactly where I left it. The lights were off. The doors were closed. Everything looked normal at first. Then I noticed something small. The driver's seat was slightly reclined. Not much. Just enough to notice. I never recline it. I like sitting upright. I always have. I never changed that seat. I stood there for a long time staring at the car. The night felt still. Too still. Like the world was holding its breath. I did not go outside. I went back to bed, but I did not sleep much after that. This morning when I opened my car door, something felt wrong. The inside smelled like cold air. And something else. Something old. Something that reminded me of breath, but not the warm kind that comes from a living person. It felt stale. Heavy. Like the air had been used by something that should not be there. I sat in the driver's seat and did not move for a while. My hands rested on the steering wheel, but I did not start the car.